thanksgiving, enter into his courts with praise. And when we do remember our ox and coatis, those who have gone before us, and our prayers are going up for the Atwater family, for the Fulton family, and then on this Shabbat we'll have his homegoing service, memorial service. It won't be at this assembly. It's going to be at Wheeling Presley Funeral Home, and then I'll do the eulogy. Then I'll be back over here. So we will have our normal Shabbat service, our prayers at 11 o'clock. We'll start our service at 11:30, and then just our regular service. And then if I'm not here, you know what to do, and just keep on keeping on, because we're in Yah's business, we're in Yahusha's business, and so what we have been talking about. I'm gonna go to Isaiah 53 and verse number 1, and it was asked in the Telegram app. Somebody open the Telegram app, because we are live. She just said, "Are we gonna something in the Telegram app?" But anyway, yes, we are live, Akoti. I know the weather has been more of a traditional Iowa winter, snow and cold, huh? So far, yeah. This is just the third day. We got a whole month to look forward to, and they're predicting. But we'll see what happens. A lot of times they predict something and it doesn't come through. Y'all gonna get buried in snow. Well, if you call 2-3 inches being buried in snow, because they've said that before. Oh, y'all getting a big storm, and. But this last one was quite a bit of accumulation. But we praise the Most High. Nobody was injured physically. Coty Parker did have a little blowout and stuff. And did you hear about that? Yeah, she had. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pairs, right. And car was in the shop. Yeah, yeah. So we tried to swerve and miss something. It was right in the road there and hit it, or she couldn't swerve, but she hit it anyway. But no injuries, so we praise Yah for that. You can always replace parts on a vehicle, but if you have an organ failure, you can't replace an organ, or you have a loss of limb or broken limb or something that's not easily replaced. I'd rather a car or a vehicle get injured than my body where I'm at. you know, let the vehicle get injured, and spare my body. But outside of that, He's kept us safe, and our prayers are going up for the Mishpacha. It's important that we pray for one another. And we do have our Friday Shabbat prayer at 6 o'clock, and we pray on Shabbat, but that shouldn't be the only time you're praying. You should set aside a time every day. Just purpose in your heart. Set aside a time every day to meet Yah. And like Yahusha says, you go into your closet. There should be a special place, a sacred place, to where you can go into your closet and have that privacy, and be able to speak unto the Most High, and just spend some time with Him. Yahusha had said, or it is stated in Luke 18, that men ought to always pray and not faint. And so it is enjoined of us to have a prayerful life, a communication with our Abba. It does tell us in two places in Shaul's letters. He says in Romans, the 8th chapter, and then in Galatians, the 4th chapter, he says it is the Ruach in us that cries out, Abba, Father. So it's actually the Ruach. It's the Ruach of Yahusha. If you have his Ruach in you, and that's what we say around here, right? We born of the water and the Spirit. We got the Ruach, the Ruach HaKodesh. Well, in your prayer life, it's that Ruach that cries out, Abba, Father. And so we are to seek him and to pray unto him. And Yahusha even said in Matthew, the 6th chapter, he said, after this manner, you are to pray. Our Abba, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. So when we pray unto Abba, and that Ruach in us makes that intercession, it's the Ruach of his son that makes that intercession with him. And if you haven't experienced that, then you need to check your Ruach, because it is, unless what's written in here is wrong. I don't know, maybe I got it wrong, but that's what it says in our book. That's what it says in our book, and that's what Yahusha taught his disciples, to pray unto our Father, because he says, as he is my Father, he's your Father, and we're to pray unto him. So Isaiah 53:1, it says, who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed? And this belief is so strong. I mean, it's something that you must have. Something you must have. It's more important than your necessary food. Being able to believe and being able to fulfill that calling that is on your life. We should all have a sense of what the Ruach wants us to do. All of us. If you're walking with them, you should have some sense, some kind of guidance on what the Ruach, or what Abba Yahuwah wants of you and what he expects of you. And if you're kind of weak in that category, well, then you really need to seek him. And not seek his Ruach, his spirit, and also seek the word and read it in the word, because I have to have some sense of direction in my life if I'm walking with him. He said in Isaiah, he said, a wayfaring fool ain't going to err. It's not a difficult way. Don't make it too difficult on yourself. When he is expecting us to live and to conduct ourselves in a certain way, in a certain manner, we don't need to get too legalistic. You can get, it says in Ecclesiastes, you can be over righteous. It says you can be over righteous, and we have to be careful. I don't want to be over righteous. I don't want to be wicked. I don't want to have iniquity, corruption, or anything like that. But I can't be over righteous, because he has given unto us, all of this life to be a witness unto him. Yes. Okay, it's in Ecclesiastic. I can't recall exactly where it is right now, but it does talk about being over righteous in Ecclesiastes. Let's just look that up, and so we can read it in its context. But it's when it's important to keep balance in your life. It's important to keep balance in your life. And that balance is, I mean, if the only thing that you can do is let's say, you spend a lot of time in the temple, in the sanctuary, you spend a lot of time in the Word and reading the Word, and your whole focus is on that, to where you don't do anything else. We had an example of one brother that it was difficult for him to keep a job, because every time he would go on the job, he had his Bible and he started speaking in tongues, and Bible going up in the air, and hey bro, it's time to work, and he's speaking in tongues. And they're saying, wait a minute, no, if that's your belief, but we got work to do, so you can be out of balance, to where you want to be so righteous or holier than thou. Because there is still a life that is expected of us. We're still going to live amongst those who are worldly. You might be so righteous and so holy, you can't go to work because there's too many sinners at work. Well, I'll give you a clue. There's sinners everywhere. Sinners going to be at work. Sinners are going to be at school. I don't want to send my kids to that school. Ain't nobody saved up in there. Well, you going to homeschool them? Because every school you go into, there's going to be unsaved people. There's going to be wickedness, and there's going to be corruption. The only time that we're going to escape the corruption of this world is when we make the kingdom. When you make it into the kingdom, then we won't have to worry about that. But until we make it to the kingdom, we're going to be amongst those who are unbelievers. We're going to be around those who practice iniquity. We're going to be around those who don't believe. Did you find it? Ecclesiastes 7:16. Let's look that up. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to look at verse number 15. All things have I seen in the days of my vanity. There is a just man that perisheth in his righteousness, and there is a wicked man that prolongeth his life in his wickedness. Which you think, Abba Yah, why is that? You know, here's a man that is just, and he's just righteous, and he perished. And here's a guy or man that he's just all out wicked, you know, and yet his life is prolonged, you know. So how do we approach Yah? How do we go before our Father with that? You know, we have to approach him with, you know, he says, all souls are mine. You know, they all belong to me. The soul of the Father and the soul of the Son. He says the soul that sinneth is going to die. So when we look at maybe a just man and he perishes in righteousness, he might not live a long life. And then we look at somebody who's wicked and he lives a long time. What do we see out of that? What kind of good do we see out of that? Is there anything positive that we can glean from that? Yeah. Right, right. And here you got a just person, but he dies in his righteousness. And you have a wicked person that lives a long life. Who's going to live again? The one who's righteous. Right. So he might have died early in his righteousness. I mean, but he has something to look forward to. Because like he says, all souls are mine. He says, but the soul that sinneth, it's going to die. And we have to realize that there is going to be another life. There is going to be afterlife. I think that's how they say it, afterlife or resurrection. I mean, there is going to be a resurrection. There is going to be a second. It's where you're going to end up, you know. So I'd rather be just and righteous and live a short time here than to be wicked and live a long time. Because I know what my end is. That's what King Daud said. He said, my foot almost slipped when I seen the prosperity of the wicked. But then he says what? But when I considered their end, when I considered what their end was going to be, oh, well, you know, I get my feet back, get in line, you know, because a lot of times we look at those who are unrighteous, it seems like they're just prospering. Man, how do they make so much money? How do they get all that? I mean, just, you know, they smoke, they drink, they cuss, you know, they take advantage of people. They're full of corruption and wickedness. But look at them. They're faring sumptuously. And we have that example with the rich man and Lazarus, right? And we see that example with them. So even though I might look over there, I can't be obsessed with somebody else's success or where they're going in life or whatever. Because when I consider their end, you know, I'd rather live a short life and live righteous than to live a long life and be wicked, because I know what the end is going to be. And so that's what he's saying here. Then he says, be not righteous over much, neither make thyself overwise. Because it also in this book, it talks about those who study long. You know, you might just spend, there's 24 hours in a day. You might spend 16 hours studying, and 6 hours sleeping and 2 hours doing something, and that's your day. Well, then you're out of balance. You're going to be out of balance then, because he wants us to be a witness unto him, and you can't be a witness if you don't never leave the house. If you don't never leave the house, or the only time your light shine is when you're in the four walls. Because when you leave here, this will determine whether you are a witness unto him or not. Oh, it's easy to live and let your light shine among us, because we all want our light to shine. That's easy. How are you going to do it outside of here? Especially this time of year, when that season of paganism is so strong that it's overcome our family and friends and coworkers. I mean, it's just consumed them. And so, sometimes we feel like, maybe I ought to go and riot with them. Maybe I ought to go party with them, because we see how, they celebrate this season. And sometimes, for me, it's not hard, but I think the first year or 2 years, because we've been doing this for a while now. Before I started teaching it, we was doing it. But I think that first year, couple of seasons and stuff, it might be kind of hard because you've been doing it all your life, and it's a cultural thing in this country. And so you feel kind of, left out or whatever, and you're missing out on the fun and the celebration and the good times and the memories, because we build up so many memories around that time, and you just feel like you're missing out. I think the first few years was kind of difficult, and I'm speaking for me because we had stopped doing it long time ago. Now it ain't nothing. I mean, it don't faze me a bit. So they just go on with their celebration because it's all paganism anyway. But he says here, be not righteous over much, neither make thyself overwise. You can go overboard. I don't know how many times I've read the Bible, but there's days where I don't read the Bible. I'll be honest, there's days where I don't crack it up because I've read it so much, and I can still recall a lot of stuff. So, I'll get into study. But there's some days I'm just going to take a break, because you can hit a plateau and you think that he's not feeding me, he's not speaking to me, I'm just, and then you get stressed, and then you start checking yourself, and you don't feel the ruach, and I don't know if I'm saved. You start going through all this stuff, and it could be you just take a break. You just hit a plateau. There's going to be another day. There's another hill to climb. You can still ascend up higher, but we can't be overwise, and we can't be over righteous. We got to be able to take life as it is, and I can't be too saved where I can't have fun and do things with my wife. You just become too over righteous. You're over wise. And you just walk around like this because you just scared, and you got, I mean, wait a minute. So you just don't want to go overboard. You got to keep balance. And then he says, why shouldest thou destroy thyself? Because when you're out of balance, it is going to affect you physically. It's going to affect your organs. And we even say, and the doctors will tell you, why are you stressing? Stress will do what? It'll take time off your life if you're stressing. So we have to, heart attack, strokes, off of stress. So I don't want to be out of balance. I got to keep balance. And if you're so deep in the word and everything, maybe you just take a day or two off. Take a vacation. Y'all ain't going nowhere. He gonna be here. I believe in vacations. Y'all know I believe in vacation. Take a vacation. Take some time off. I don't ever complain when people say I gotta take a vacation. I need some time off. Hey, go on. Take a few days off. Enjoy yourself. Y'all ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We've been here for a long time. So, just, we can't get out of balance. Don't get out of balance. Make sure you keep your balance. Enjoy one another. Do things together. And, I mean, we only have we only meet twice a week, right? You know, y'all meet too much. You going to really? Because we used to, we used to come. We would be in the church in the building about 5 days out of the week. Now it's just 2 days. And y'all go too much, really? I mean, and then it's like, man, it's just so long. So I go from let me cut the teaching down some, because people talking about it's so long and everything, and I'm thinking, man, because when I grew up as a child, now we was don't tell Bishop, you teaching too long because he's liable to just take another hour, but you don't want to be out of balance. Basically, that's what that's saying. You don't want to be out of balance, and you could actually destroy yourself if you do. Be not over much wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? So he's just telling you, there's some times where you can't help but see wicked. I mean, we just see wicked things. I'm not delving into it or, man, I just want to make this a part of my daily routine. No, but you might see wicked things or even hear, there's a lot of language that I hear. I don't like it. It's not pleasant to my ears, and I try to keep myself out of certain environments. Even times when I'm watching videos and stuff, and if there's profanity, sometimes that's just too much, because I think you can speak and articulate without using profanity. And I think people who use profanity instead of articulating, it just shows their limited intelligence. But, I might hear, somebody might hear a curse word. Oh, my ear. Oh. And you just heard a curse word. So, I mean, I don't use profanity, but I used to speak it. And I ain't forgot them words. I just don't speak them. So I don't. When it says, "Be not over much wicked, neither be thou foolish." Don't be foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time? Yes. Yeah. I'm. Yeah. Yeah. You be careful because you've heard it so much, and it starts to take recess in your brain. And then all of a sudden you get into a situation and boom, and then you say, where did that come from? It came from your head, from your mouth. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. That's where it was. Yeah. Yeah. Because once it takes residence inside you, something could happen, pressures come up on you, boom, it's gonna pop out. And that's why and I'm like that too. I mean, I'll listen to it. I might hear a few, words of profanity and everything. But if it's just all it is profanity, I think I'm gonna change it. I don't want to have to listen to that. And because I just think you can articulate and speak how you feel and what your thoughts are, and what you feel about things without using profanity. It's just. But anyway, I'm not. How can somebody who is condemned to hell, because there are some people who are condemned to hell, and Yahusha even said that they're preserved, So how do you might not save them? Hey, I can't tell you the truth. I can't save anybody. That's up to Yahusha. He's the one whether he's going to I mean, his life has already been lived for us to redeem us. That's already happened, but that individual has to come to him and want to be renewed, regenerated, and what we call, saved. They have to want to do that. I can want it all my life, and I could be wanting it all my life, and they never come around. So I can't get out of balance with that. I have to understand that, because sometimes, you can put so much stuff on you, to where it just causes your body, your organ, everything just break. And then he says, why should you die before your time? You could have lived a lot longer. In fact, I was listening to this guy last night because I was sleeping and I wake up and I sleep and I wake, and I was listening to this guy, and he was talking about 5 things that keeps you up, that 5 things you need to know when you sleep, because, and it's proof that, a doctor and everything, they've done their studies. But sometimes it's just the way you sleep. They said the best way to sleep is on your left side. The worst position to sleep on is on your stomach. You sleep on your stomach. He says people who are sleeping on the stomach constantly, not just one night, when it's a lifestyle, you're cutting off time off your life. The best position is the left side, and then your back, just laying down on your back. Then your right side. If you want to choose for the left side first, then the back, then the right side, then your stomach. And so I was listening to that because I kept thinking, why am I, I'm waking up, and sometimes I just wake right up out of sleep. But there was 5 things he said, but that was one thing, that he said. And then another thing was, he said a few things, but another thing was your devices. You should not sleep with a phone by your head. You just should not sleep with a phone by your head. He said, if you got a nightstand, put it in the drawer and close the drawer. But because some people put it under their pillow. They put it right by their bedside or right on the bed with them. They don't want to miss a message or whatever. And he said you just don't want to do that because it interrupts your sleep, And then he says the longer you do that and your sleep, if you're not getting a good solid, 5-8 hours of sleep where it's uninterrupted, just good sleep, if you're not doing that over an extended period of time, you're taking time off your life. It won't happen. Oh, I didn't get 8 hours sleep last night. I'm going to die. No, it's not like that. But over time, you don't realize you could be taking a year, 2 years off of your life just because of your sleeping habits. And there's a lot of things, they're still learning because we haven't always had these devices. This came around about 2000. I think I got my first cell phone actually I got a cell phone in the 90s. But it was one of those humpback turtle phone Motorola's. The battery only lasts 30 minutes. You got to take it out and charge it. And but my first iPhone was in 2007. So they're still doing studies, and they don't know this generation, because we got a generation coming up. All they've known is cell phones. The study is still out. They don't know how that's going to impact them when they're 50, 60. They don't know. I mean, some of us, we're there. We didn't start off with a cell phone, and we're already crazy. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But we got a generation growing up. They don't know what it's like to have a landline phone, a team phone. They don't know what that's like. They come up with cell phones and iPad, electronics and stuff. And so the case study is still out. We don't know how, Robert, what is he going to be like when he's 50, 60? We don't know yet. His exposure to it is not like how we weren't exposed to it like that. We were exposed to coloring books, going to the library, the mobile library, coming around the neighborhood, that getting books and stuff. That's what we were exposed to. It's a different day. They don't read, not like how we used to read, and so we'll see. But that's one anyway. I'm talking about. Let me go on and get into this. You have to know what you believe, and I think this is a very, very important question he asked. When he says, "Who have believed our report, and to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed?" Notice he says, "Our report," because where do you think the prophet Isaiah got this from? Where did he get it from? He got it from the Most High, got it from Yahuwah. And Yahuwah gave it to him, and he began to speak. So he's saying, who's going to believe this? Who's going to believe this? And then after Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, who was supposed to pick this up? Yasharel. because it was given to Yasharel. So when you look at that hour is, first it starts off with Isaiah, the prophet Isaiah, and the Most High, because he gave it to him, start off with him. But then Isaiah was a prophet. Actually, he was a prophet to the northern kingdom. Actually, he was a prophet to the northern kingdom. But all of the, because, he talks about the two sticks. We see the two sticks and they have to come together. But you had the northern kingdom that went off into captivity before the southern kingdom. And so Isaiah the prophet was a prophet during the time of the Assyrian captivity, which was for the northern kingdom. And so when he says, who have believed our report, it started off with him. But then it went to those who listened to the nation, because it was the nation of Yasharel that was supposed to take this report and take it to other nations. Because when you read through this, and you go through this, because this is one of my favorite chapters, but when you read this and go through this, it's talking about our Messiah. It's talking about our King. It's talking about our Savior, the sacrifice for our transgressions. And so he's telling the nation, do you believe this? Have you believed? We know that many of the nation of Israel did not enter into their rest. They did not inherit Beulah land, the land that flows with milk and honey. They did not inherit simply because of unbelief. Just simple unbelief. And you'd be surprised how many people don't believe this report. It's astonishing, because it first went to Yasharel. And you'd be surprised how many in Yasharel don't believe this. They don't believe it. So he goes on to say, and to whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed? And that arm that he's talking about there, we looked that up. It's talking about power. But if you look that up, oh, come on. Arm is H2220, and it means, the root word means force. Force. And we go down to C, the arm as representing power. Power. And we see sometimes where he says the right hand of Yah, Abba Yah, the right hand of the Father, whatever, it's denoting power, force, and strength. Now, we look at, especially if you look at this nation, when they talk about force and power, what do they like to explain to you or share with you? They're military. They're military. We want to show you we got force, and we want to show you our force. And it talks about all the military equipment and everything that they have and everything. But when you read through here, Abba Yahuwah's force or his power wasn't in any guns, tanks, missiles, military. It wasn't in any of that. What was the power that he was talking about when you read through? What was that power? The word? Because he's going to talk to you about it, right? Because he says, at whom is the arm of Yahuwah revealed? And for, when you see for is because. It's just like saying because or for. So what is he getting ready to explain here? Where is the power and the force of Abba Yahuwah? And in his son, in Yahusha, his son. But what about that? His obedience. I mean, because what we, how can I put this? Because sometimes we don't see, we see Yah in a certain light and that light only. Because when you start to to read through here, and you see, in one verse he says, it pleased Yahuwah. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait a minute. I mean, let's think about that. Let's think about that. Because we don't let me go here, Isaiah 58, and I'm sorry, I think it's 55. Isaiah 55. And I'll start with verse number 8. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith Yahuwah. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. So trying to picture the mind of Yahuwah, especially when you read Isaiah 53, and he's telling you, this is my force, this is my power. But when you read through there and you begin to see what he's talking about, and you're going, man, how is that powerful? How is that powerful? How is that such a force in this world? Especially when you consider force and the definition of force. Because we might think that force and power is, what we see, what Yah's going to do with these nations in the book of Revelation, what he did to Egypt, coming out of Egypt, and we see his great power. But he's not even associating that with this power. But the most important thing is, do you believe it? Do we believe it? And has it really been revealed unto us what Yah has done? Because for anybody to miss out on this, you've missed the greatest part of Yah. You've missed the greatest part. Listen to what he says. For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness, which is beauty. And when we shall see him, there's no beauty that we should desire him. Now he's talking about force now. He's talking about power. And he starts it off like that. That's why when Yahusha came, he was so lowly. I mean, he didn't come in with great pomp and popularity and opulence and just the what you would think if it's the Son of Yah. Because sometimes when I read this, and I'm going, and we got to look at how powerful this is. And then the thought is, why is that powerful? Why is this, we're not going to go through the whole chapter, but why is this so powerful? Do we know what happens here in this chapter? Do we know what happens? He kind of gives you a insight into his death. Ooh. This is why Yah's not going to spare a lot of people. We think Yah's forgive. A lot of times when I say, well, Yah is so merciful. Yeah, he's merciful. Yeah, he is. I'll say, yes, he is. But you don't really want to get on the bad side of Yah. You really don't want to. You don't want to push him. You don't want to try him. Because he does say that, yeah, I've waited a long time. I've held my peace. Where is that at? I think that's in Isaiah 42 and 14. You don't want to don't keep pushing Yah. Okay, don't keep thinking you can, Now he is merciful and he has patience. And he's waited. And we even hear Kepha saying he waited for the former and the latter rain. He's long suffering. Yes, he is. But you don't want to keep pushing him. Yes. You have I think for me it's the former rain with what came out of Moses. The latter rain came out of the Mashiach. That's how I see it. Now you have other people might see it, differently. But when he waited patient for the former rain, how long did he wait for Yasharel from the time that he married them as a nation? Because in the 24th chapter of Exodus, they said, everything that you say, Abba Yah, we will do and be obedient. And it was a consummation. The blood was shed and everything. It was a consummation of a marriage. And so he waited look at from the time from Exodus 24 all the way up to the time that our Messiah was born. All this time, he had waited for Yasharel. And Yasharel has their history of what and there's a couple of times Yah talked about him pretty bad. he talked about his nation pretty bad, but that's how they were as a nation, as a people. But the greatest thing that his strength and his power was the fact that his son not only died, but it was a brutal, horrible. That was horrible type of death. And why are you bringing all this up? Because we're on this side looking back. We're on this side looking back. Nobody today has any excuses on why they won't make the kingdom. You can't come up with an excuse. When we see the power of Yahuwah, and when I say the power of Yahuwah was, I have a son that, yeah, he's going to be obedient. He's going to do everything. But he's not just going to die for your sins, because he didn't do no sins. Not only he's just going to die for your sins, but it's the type of death. It was a type of death. And he wants us to remember that. The fact that he gave his son, the brutal way he was treated by his own brethren. It was the nation of Israel that turned him over to the Romans, because our capital punishment was stoning, and the capital punishment that he died from was the Romans, which was a Gentile heathen nation. And that's when it says he died outside the camp. When it says he died outside the camp, because in the camp, if it was in Israel, he would have been stoned. But they made a public humiliation of him. And it even says they stripped his clothes. So he was up on a stake like this, with his hands here and his feet down there, up there like that, just exposed to the world. They just stripped him down and everything. He couldn't just, give him some clothes. Oh no, you say this is your king? Here's your king. Just the public display of him. But Abba Yah is saying, I did that to my son, not for him, but for y'all. I did that for y'all, you know. And I know a lot of people they're not rationalizing a lot of things. A lot of people are still living their life their own kind of way. They're still reveling. They're still caught up in paganism. There's, all this stuff that's going on. They're still gravitated to a lot of evil. And he says, I showed you my power and I did it through my son, which is totally different than how you would characterize a nation that is about to be exalted, that is about to be glorified before the whole world. You wouldn't think that it would come through this pattern. You wouldn't think that. But the glory that is about to be revealed on his nation, that's why he says, anybody that rejects his son, you don't know what you're doing. I mean, I know a lot of times we don't have a lot of knowledge, wisdom, a lot of us, but the rejection of his son is so vital and so critical. And we have a lot of events throughout the year, feast and the Shabbat feast. He says, I'm the ruler of the Shabbat. That's what Yahusha said. I'm the ruler of Shabbat. I mean, everything that he does, that we practice, to keep and everything, is to memorialize him, to remember him, to be faithful unto Abiyah. This is for us. It's not that difficult. For us, it's not that difficult. And even when I said, when you get over to the kingdom, people gonna talk to you. Hey, what did you have to go through to get here? What you gonna say? Because for us, really, it's not that difficult. But he does require for us to believe it, and then once you believe it and you exercise your belief with faith, it's going to produce some works. It's going to produce some works. Because if we think that we don't have to do anything, because a lot of people feel, I'm not going to do no works. I'm not going to do no works. I'm just going to go ahead and. But the one who is going to let's see who's going to reward you. Now, we're not going to read all through Isaiah 53, but even I'm just going to throw this out. Let me throw this out because we're going to go to see who's going to reward you. Let me throw this out. In the 11th chapter of Hebrews, which we call that chapter, the Hall of Fame of Faith, right? And it talks about what some Yasharelites went through, Israeli, what they went through, and the type of death that they had. And for us, the way I see it today, there's nobody that's got it that bad. I mean, yeah, we've been through some stuff, on this continent, in this culture. Yeah, we've been through some stuff, but nothing like what they had gone through. Some of the torture and things like that they have gone through, we haven't. So actually, when it comes to our light shining and what we should be living before Abba Yahuwah, that's why I said for any of us, we ain't got no excuse. Y'all ain't gonna have no excuse. I ain't gonna have no excuse. We ain't gonna have no excuse. What kind of excuse are you gonna listen to? What you gonna tell them? So I didn't read this verse here because he has been patient. He says, I have long time holden my peace. I have been still and refrained myself. Now will I cry like a travailing woman. I will destroy and devour at once. That day is coming. That day is coming. And we see that in Revelation. When you read Revelation, you're talking about the day of Yahuwah. And that's why it says in Amos, right? He says, you better be careful. You talking about, I want the day of Yahuwah. I want the day of you. You don't know. That's a dreadful day, and his day's coming. It's coming up, like we've seen in Revelation. It is coming, and a lot of people are afraid. That's why a lot of people don't want to read Revelation. Oh, it's too scary and everything. The day of Yahuwah is a dreadful day. It's a dreadful day, but it is coming. But for us, and you're going to hear some things coming out of Isaiah 53, because our next big feast, and it's not for a while, but it's the feast of Passover. So there'll just be some things, because we have to remember who our Passover is, because if we make it to Pesach 26, whoa, what do you mean if we make it to Pesach 26? We really have to understand how important that feast is for us, and what our Messiah went through, and that was the very strength and the force of Yah. So when you read Isaiah 53, just kind of keep it in the back of your mind. This is the arm of Yahuwah. This is the force. This is his power. Because when you read through that, you go, this is powerful. This, he's just talking about a suffering servant and his death and everything. And that, because see, his thoughts are above our thoughts, and his ways are above our ways. Because to him, for Yahusha to say in the Garden of Gethsemane, for Yahusha to say, Abba, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. But then he says, nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. For him to say, that's to Abba Yahuwah, that's powerful. That's powerful. So when you look at your own life, and you can say that with your own life, Abba, I really don't want to go. I see a lot of danger. I see a lot of trouble. I see a lot of heartache. I see a lot of pain. I really don't want to go through this, Abba. Nevertheless, not my will, but thine be done. If it's your will for me to go through this, suffer these things in life, maybe have a tragic death like that, because we can't always look at a tragic death. Well, they must have did something. What did Yahusha do wrong? What did he do wrong? He didn't do anything wrong. But the type of death he had was very brutal. And they call him James, but Jacob, he was what? He was cut in half. He was cut in half. Shaul, what did they do to him? Well, that was Kepha. They put him on a stake upside down. Yeah, what happened to Shaul? Paul, what happened to him? Huh? Yeah, they beheaded him. Well, they must have did something wrong. No, not necessarily. Because a lot of times we want to go off into the great by and by, very peaceful, and I want to pass in my sleep, and stuff like that. But we should be saying, Abba Yah, I don't know what, but whatever your will is for me, let your will be done. Because to Abba Yah, that is powerful. When we start to bargain with him, we want to bargain with them, and you're not experiencing, and you don't want to experience, and you don't want to be remembered the great power of Yah when you try to start to bargain with them, because there was some people who bargained with them, right? We got some examples in the Bible, right? That bargained with Yah. I can think of one right off the top of my head. Anybody else? Gideon, but there's another one. He's in Kings and Isaiah, and he bargained with Yah. Hezekiah, he bargained with him, and it cost him. He should have said, Abba Yah, I don't want to go, but not my will, thy will be done. Because you have to understand there is an afterlife. There is going to be a resurrection. We have to understand that there is going to be a resurrection. It's just which resurrection are you going to be in? Because Yahusha even talked about that there's going to be a resurrection. But I'm going to show you who's going to reward you in Matthew 16 and 27. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he shall reward every man according to his faith, according to his works. Now you got to have faith, because we know faith without works is dead, being alone. So, and you can't just have works and no faith, because it says in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 2, where it says they didn't enter in. It says the gospel was preached unto them like it is unto us, but it did not benefit them because it was not mixed with faith. So I got to have faith, but I got to have works. I have to have the whole thing. So he's going to come back and he's going to reward us according to our works. Now, if you don't have no works and you didn't put no works in, well, then you don't get a reward. That's what he says here, a reward, not a ward. There's a difference between a award and a reward. And so we know that I have to put what I believe into action. What is it that I believe? Because you have to believe something. And when you believe that, what kind of works and faith do you have to put that into action? Because he is going to reward you according to your works. And so none of us can say, or none of us is going to get a reward without any works. You won't get one. And then in another place is Revelation 22, verse number 12. He says, and behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me to give every man according as his work shall be. According as his work shall be. And it's better to do your work when you got youth, vitality, strength, before them days come, like he says in Ecclesiastes. Remember thy Creator in the days of thy youth, before them evil days come, when you say, I ain't got no pleasure in these days now. And you stick around here long enough and you feel like that. So we're supposed to, and while we have time, we put our work in. Now, some of us, and we got some of the assembly, and we have been putting in the works, and we're getting to that place now where, hey, we're still here. We'll give you knowledge, wisdom, but it's, while you got that youth and that vitality and that strength, you should be wanting to do some works for the Most High. And he loves, Abba Yah loves a sacrifice. If you don't know that by now, probably because you haven't read his book, but if you go back to the beginning of the book and you start reading it through, Abba Yah loves a sacrifice. Loves a sacrifice. And Shaul knew it. That's why he says, I beseech you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of Yahweh, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice. Why do he say that? Because Abba Yah loves a sacrifice. Why does he love a sacrifice? You have to take that up with him if somebody's not able to answer it for you. You have to take it up to him. Why does he? Because when you look at Isaiah 53, his son, you go, wow. And that's his strength and power. So he's going to get power out of your sacrificial life. And so there's some work that we have to do. You can't be slothful when it comes to Yahuwah's business and doing a work for him. And he tells us in here how we can work. Huh? Yeah, you got to work while it's day before night comes, because when night comes, no man will be able to work. And that's why we put in our work as much as we can. It should not be pulling teeth to get people to do things for Abba Yahuwah's assembly and his work, his body and everything. It shouldn't be like that. Man, I didn't call 10 folks now. Ain't nobody want to do nothing for y'all. It shouldn't be like that. We should be ready to put in some work for Yah and for his kingdom, because we're going to get into more and more of kingdom building, because Abba Yah is not interested in your religion. He's interested in how you're going to live in his kingdom. That's what he's interested in. And how does he know how we're going to live in his kingdom? How does he know that? But what we're doing now. He will know how we're going to live in his kingdom by how we're presenting ourselves right now, what we're doing right now. That's how he's going to know how we're going to live in his kingdom. If you don't love his word now, you ain't going to love it later. Because if you don't love it now, it doesn't change. So if you have a problem with his word now, then you'll have a problem with his word later, because his word's not going to change. So does that? I got a question here. Is that including the work that you do in the community as well? The first works that you do is being obedient unto his word. Just to put it simple as that, to be obedient unto his word. That's the first works that you can do. And there's so many things we can pull out. Let me pull this out to talk about that real quick. Psalms 119. I'm gonna start with verse number 1. I mean, there's just so many things that we can pull out. But this is King Daud looking back to what Moses wrote. You know, he's looking back to what Moses wrote. And this is what he says. Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of Yahuwah. So first, I got to know what his law is. Now, if you were blessed, because some people say that's pre-Mashiach. So if this was blessed pre-Mashiach, and you're saying it's not blessed post-Mashiach, then you have to take some verses and books and stuff out of the Bible, out of the book, if you believe that. That's pre-Mashiach. No, this is life, whether you live it now or not. Blessed are the undefiled in the way who walk in the law of Yahuwah. Blessed are they that keep his testimonies and that seek him with what? You have to put your whole heart in it. You have to put your whole heart in it. And like we talked about at the beginning of this, you still got to stay in balance. He don't want you to be so righteous that you heard this before. They're so heavenly minded, they ain't no earthly good. Because they got their mind up in the Shamayim, they can't do nothing down here. You know. So we got to balance this out, right? He said, so my whole heart, I have my whole heart in it when I take a vacation. My whole heart is still in it. My whole heart is in it when I take a break. Hey, y'all, I've been studying for a couple weeks now, preparing for stuff. I'm just going to take a break. That's still, my whole heart is still in it. Because he knows what we're made of. Because sometimes when you say this, your whole heart, they're thinking 24/7, 365 days a year, how many years you live. You won't live very long. So you have to understand what it means by whole heart. You never lose the heart and the love that you have for Yah, no matter where you are or what you're doing. It's with your whole heart. They also do no iniquity. Iniquity is lawlessness. It's wickedness. It's going against what was law, what was written. They also do no iniquity. They walk in his ways. Thou hast commanded us to keep thy precepts diligently. Oh, that my ways were directed to keep thy statutes. Then shall I not be ashamed when I have respect unto all thy commandments. I will praise thee with uprightness of heart when I shall have learned thy righteous judgment. I will keep thy statute. Oh, forsake me not utterly. I just chose those first 8 verses to address this, where he talks about, does that mean doing work in the community as well? The community, when you talk about understanding his precepts and being faithful unto his commandments and everything, there's built into those commandments on how you're supposed to treat your brother, how you're supposed to help your brother. Over and over in there, he talks about your brother's needs. So we as an assembly here, and if we're going to keep the Torah the way it's supposed to keep Torah, it even says in Acts, they had all things common because they took care of one another. They wanted to make sure, hey, we're experiencing something now. We had a lot of snow. We're going to have a typical winter, Iowa winter. It's going to be cold. It's going to be snowy. If there's somebody in the community, in our assembly here, that is lacking anything, we should be able to help them. You got, hey, I know some children that, they're going to school, they don't have boots. Well, let's go get them some boots. Hey, no question. Who are they? Have they been here? They only been here 2 times? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. Because see, if you're kingdom minded and you want to keep Yah happy and everything, we are our brother's keeper. So I wouldn't want other agencies to outshine us when it comes to taking care of our community. I wouldn't want that. Well, they're well financed. We might not be as well heeled as them, but we do have a little money. And it doesn't, we're not the state. I can't go out and print no money. So we're limited. But my heart is open to those who have need, and that's what you have to be. When you talk about working in the community and doing things in the community, we should be, if you don't want to help somebody that's in need, there's something wrong with you. You don't know Torah. Because my Torah teaches me, if I see my brother in need, and Yahusha even said, if you see somebody that needs a shirt, what do? You give them one off your back, or give them a coat too. Here, take my shirt. Here, take a coat. I don't want you to get cold. Some of us I got several coats. And if I see somebody, if somebody come around here, they're cold, shivering, they ain't got no, here, take my coat, because I got another one at home. I'm just saying we have to be ready in our mindset to help those in our community here. We want to start within our community here. We want to start here. 180s across the street. I can't help everybody with 180. Don't bring folks from 180 over here. No, don't do that. But if we got families and friends. We know people around here, hey, they don't have no gloves. Well, let's go get them some gloves. Y'all know I would do that. I think y'all know me. Y'all know I would do that. I ain't going to see some children ain't got no gloves and stick my nose up at them. That ain't right. That's not Yahusha. He would, So, you had your hand up. Yeah, there's a time where you can help. Then there's a time where you enable. And there's a difference. Because our book teaches if a man doesn't work, you mean you're capable of working? You mean you do have a job? Why are you over here eating my food? I could see if you're in between jobs and hey, I'm just in between jobs, and that person normally feeds themselves. Because our book teaches us if a man does not work, he shouldn't. Don't come showing up at my table. You don't want to get a job. You're well capable. Now I'll give you a meal, but I'm gonna tell you how to feed yourself. Because there's that saying you can give somebody a fish and feed them for a day, or you can teach them how to fish and feed them for life. So it's not like, okay, I've helped, I've done what I could. It's time for you, because I don't want to be an enabler. It's time for you to stand up on your own 2 feet. What I'm really looking at are those who are truly in need by, sometimes we see it around here. We know because people come around here a lot, And I had, before the snow fell, I don't know if that jacket's still out there, but somebody left a coat up here. And I'm surprised he didn't come back to get it. It's like, man, it's getting cold. He left a coat there, But if I was to get it, I'd definitely wash it really good. And then, give it to some. But to answer your question, when somebody is capable of taking care of themselves, they just don't want to do it, they want you to do it, then that's a problem. Then you can't be foolish, We even have examples in Torah where there were certain situations where the people didn't know what to do, so they brought it to the elders. And then the elders discussed it, and the Bible says, however the elders chastise, then that's what you have to do. So the Bible leaves it up to the elders, more than one, elders, and then they decide how they're going to judge on it, or how they're going to chastise, or however they're going to deal with it, and then that becomes, what they're supposed to do. I wouldn't let somebody bleed me, because I can say I've helped you, I have given you, I have done. You can't say I didn't help you. If you say that, you're lying. Yeah, because I have done it, but I can't be an enabler. I want you to be a man. Because our book says if a man doesn't work, you can't sit down at my table and think you're going to eat every day and you don't want to work. That's not Torah. So because he wants us to be men. Now, you do have some that are handicapped, and, they have agencies, they have things that can help out the handicapped. And that's something that's different than somebody who just don't want to work. We're talking about two different things, And then sometimes, we can create work for people, We can create work from, hey, I ain't going to give you some money, but if you want to work for it, I got this job to do, that job to do, and I'll pay you. And the way we do it around here, we'll pay you today. Ain't going to, we'll put you on the payroll. You'll get paid every 2 weeks. No, we're going to do that today, if you work. So, yes. I'm sorry, I was looking at the chat. Yeah, you don't let somebody who does work for you, you don't let the night fall. You pay them on that day. And back then, they did a lot of work during the day. They didn't work at night. Not like, now we're corporate America. We're 24/7, but it wasn't like that. They did a lot of work during the day. And where Yasharel is, which is close to the equator, 12-hour days, 12-hour nights, pretty much year-round. Because when we were over in Ghana, when we were close to the equator, we were over there in their wintertime, and it was 6 p.m., it was getting dark. 6 a.m., getting light. Every day, that was in their winter, and they said that's just like it is in the summer. So, because they're close to the equator, 12 hours. And Yasharel, where they lived, was close to the equator, so it was 12-hour days, 12-hour nights. And so you see your night and your day and your time. And I mean, it was just so much easier to calculate, days and months and everything because being so close to the equator. But, yeah, so when we look at helping out the community, we're gonna help out our own first. Those who are here, but then we'll help out. We want to, and we have to actually start building the community. We're going to have to start building the community, and start helping the community, and as we get ready to leave here, because we have to show within ourselves and in our work that what we're doing now, how we're living now, is a good example of how we're going to live in the kingdom. Somebody who is selfish and doesn't want to help anybody is not going to be too successful of making it into the kingdom. So having that generous heart. Yeah, yeah. Focus. Yeah, 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 yeah. Because he's preparing us. He's actually preparing us, because it's not going to be too much longer. It's not too far off in the future where he's going to gather us, and we're going back. We're going back, and it's the parable that Yahusha gave of the dragnet. And he put out the net, and he grabbed all those fish, and he brought them to shore. And then he sorted through them. He got rid of all the bad ones. And even in Ezekiel it says that, I'm going to gather them from all these countries. I'm going to plead with them face to face. So we have to prepare ourselves now on how we're going to live in the kingdom. He's actually given us a runway to get in order, to do everything we're supposed to do. Because how do you think he's going to judge you? Is this one qualified to live in my kingdom? How do you think he's going to judge you? He's going to judge you by the life that you lived up to that time. That's how he's going to judge you. He's not going to take in people who are full of iniquity. They're not going to make it in. He even says the rebels and the transgressors, they're not going to make it in. So when were they rebels and transgressors? When they met him? No, they was rebels and transgressors leading up to that appointment that they had with him, where they had to meet him. So their book was already written in their book what type of person that they were going to be. I don't want this one in my kingdom. And I don't know about you, but there's some people I want to live in the neighborhood with, and there's some other people I just don't want to live in this neighborhood. I don't feel safe. I don't feel they're not a good. I just don't. A lot of times it's just safety. But Yah saying, I don't want this one in the kingdom. This one I'll take it to the kingdom. This one I'm not going to take. And it's all going to be determined by the life that you live, that you lead up to it. You ain't going to make no big 180-degree transition from how you living now to when you have that appointment with him. Whatever your life story is, whatever you got written in your book, that's what it's going to be there. Then he's going to decide, do I want to take him into the kingdom or don't I? If there's, I would say if there's any gray areas or if there's any doubt or whatever, anything like that, they probably won't get in. That's what I think. I don't know. But because he's given us, just like he gave Jezebel, I gave her time and space to repent. I gave it to her. Just like he gives us. Every day you have an opportunity to repent, to turn, to live for him. We all have that opportunity. Now, if you don't take that opportunity, well, then you're not going to get in. And it's going to be well populated. We have to, our mindset has to grow to the point where we have to understand that there's maybe not these nations and the people that we see now, especially those who are wicked and everything, that, well, they're going to perish because during the day of Yah, one of those days when he opens up one of those seals, 2/3 of the earth population is going to be gone. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. But there are going to be nation people that's going to live. You're going to have strangers that's going to cleave to the house of Yasharel. Because it says that in Zechariah. I know Yah's with y'all. I'm going with y'all. And they're going to, and it says in Isaiah 14 that you're going to have the stranger. And then in Ezekiel 47, it talks about the strangers living amongst Yasharel in the kingdom. So you're going to have other nations. You're going to have Yasharel. You're going to have, we just have to understand that it's, for me anyway, the picture I have in my mind is more rooted in Scripture instead of the tradition of the Roman religion that says you're just going to be in heaven. What are we going to do up there? We're just going to stand around the throne forever. Just stand around the throne saying hallelujah forever. No, that's not. That's not even in the book. It's not in the book. The inheritance of Abraham was a land that flows with milk and honey. He promised it to them, and that's what they get to inherit. And those who make the kingdom will get a glorified body, especially if you came through Yahusha. Those who come through Yahusha gets that glorified body like he has, to where, he has a body that's not going to die ever again, because Adam was made like that. Adam was made not to die. It wasn't until he transgressed and sinned, death came in. But that type of body that Adam had was built to live forever. And the only reason why Yahusha had to get that glorified body, because as we read in Isaiah 53, he had to die. He had to die. And then after his death, then we see that glorified body. And so those who come through Yahusha gets that glorified body. Now, what if you don't come through Yahusha? That means you're going to hell. No, there's going to be, everybody has a book on themselves. And those, when he opens up those books and he sees the type of life you live, and there was no regeneration, you didn't come. If you didn't come through Yahusha and you lived a horrible, wicked, corrupt life, there's probably no hope for you. Doesn't mean there's not going to be other people, because he says he's got 12,000 from each tribe, young men they're virgins, never knew a man, never knew a woman. Young men, never knew a woman. And the reason why because they're going to seed the kingdom. Because he said that Abraham's seed would be like the stars of the Shamaim, and all the tribes will be known. They'll be reestablished. The seed of all those tribes will be reestablished, because he said, I got 12,000 from this tribe, 12,000 from this tribe, 12,000. Never knew a woman, and that seed is going to populate in the kingdom. So you're going to have those who will populate. The seed will still be growing. You're going to have other nations and everything. Everybody's got a book on themselves, and that book is going to be open, and it's going to say in your book what you did with your life. It's going to say. In my book, I believe the gospel. I repented. I was immersed in his name and filled with his ruach, and living according to the instructions in Torah, not no Roman religion, living by the instructions in Torah. So that's going to be written in my book. Now, everybody, people are going to have different books, and he is a righteous judge. He will judge righteously. All right, so any other questions or comments out there? So as we're preparing to live in the kingdom, we're going to be preparing ourselves, and really we should be trying to get other people. All right, we got Shabbat coming up, and I have a eulogy. Deacon Atwater, We're going to send them off. It's going to be at Wheeling Presley at 11 o'clock. We're going to have Shabbat here like we normally do every Shabbat. 11 o'clock prayer, 11:30 we'll start our Shabbat service. And then when I finish up at Wheeling Presley, then at Deacon Atwater Memorial Service, then I'll be coming back here. Saturday, December 6th. I put it in there. No, they got it. Yeah. Yeah. You want after this? Okay. All right. So anything else? Otherwise, we're going to say shalom, shalom to everybody, and we are going to see you back on the Shabbat. So we thank you all for coming in, being a part of this Torah teaching. And we just say shalom.